Human rescues, Aelin girl, the bond they forge is far deeper than he ever imagined. Eli Warren crouched low, sweeping aside a curtain of fanged violet leaves as he moved through the tangled undergrowth of Azura 7's bioluminescent forest. Shadows and eerie light flickered across his face. The world was ever twilight here, painted in indigo and teal by the triple moons that swirled overhead. For 6 months, solitude had been his constant companion, broken only by the chitter of hidden creatures and the soft hum of his datapads. Each day blurred into the next, routine, predictable, safe. Until the ground heaved beneath him, the shockwave hit with a force that stole his breath, a flash of searing azure energy splitting the dimness. The air warped, and a thunderous crack split the canopy. Eli stumbled, the earth vibrating beneath his boots as a surge of unnatural blue fire exploded through the undergrowth, setting the world alight with impossible color. He barely registered the static crackle of burning foliage before a voice, faint and raw, pierced the chaos. "Help! Please!" The words were unfamiliar, yet their desperation was unmistakable. Eli's instincts took over. He shoved his way through tangling vines, his field jacket snagging on grasping stems. Carnivorous pitcher plants snapped at his legs, but he wrenched free, heart pounding. The flames licked higher, blue tongues dancing over the ruins of the forest. There, in a clearing made by devastation, he saw her. She lay pinned beneath a splintered tree limb, an alien girl, her skin luminous blue, hair spilling like molten gold onto the scorched moss. Ethereal projections of energy, wing-like and shimmering, flickered weakly from her back. Burn scars marred her shoulder and torso, fresh and raw. Eli's mind reeled. He fumbled for his emergency barrier, thumbed it on, and a soft amber glow flickered up around him. It was barely strong enough to push back the encroaching heat. He dropped to one knee beside her. "Hey, can you hear me?" His voice was hoarse, choked with smoke and adrenaline. Her eyes fluttered open, twin orbs blazing like miniature suns. She blinked, pain tightening her jaw, but her gaze never left his. "Dagger," she rasped, pointing to a shattered patch of ground. "Please, it's important." Eli followed her trembling finger. There, half buried in the moss, was a crystalline dagger. Its blade fractured, yet still pulsing with the same unnatural azure light that torched the clearing. He snatched it up, careful not to slice his gloved palm. "I've got it," he assured her, tucking the weapon into his pack. "Now let's get you out of here." He braced himself, lifted the tree limb with a grunt, and slid his arms beneath her. Her skin burned feverishly hot against his own, and despite her obvious agony, her fingers curled tightly around his arm. "Don't let them find me," she whispered, voice trembling. "I won't," he promised, voice low and steady, though his heart thudded wildly. "I'm Eli. I'm here to help." The blue flames surged closer. His barrier sputtered, flickering as its power drained away. Gritting his teeth, Eli shifted his body, pressing her tightly against his chest. As the shield winked out, he rolled them both away from the encroaching fire, hissing as heat licked at his back. Leaves crackled, and the air reeked of scorched ozone and fear. They landed beyond the burning thicket, tumbling into a patch of phosphorescent ferns. Eli coughed, clutching the girl protectively. She lay still for a moment, chest heaving, then managed to raise her head. Her eyes, so bright they seemed to cut through the gloom, searched his. "Lyra," she said at last, the word both a greeting and a warning. He nodded, meeting her gaze. "Lyra," he repeated softly, "you're safe. For now." The forest had gone eerily silent, as if the entire ecosystem held its breath. Somewhere in the darkness, unseen threats gathered. Eli felt the weight of it pressing in on them, the knowledge that this was no accident. Someone had meant for her to burn. Between heartbeats, something shifted. Lyra's hand lingered on his arm, gratitude mingling with uncertainty. For a brief moment, a spark of connection flared between them, fragile yet undeniable. "Come on," Eli said, his voice barely above a whisper. He glanced warily at the shadows beyond the clearing. "My research shelter isn't far. We'll be safe there, at least for a while." Together they moved into the gloom, guided by the faint hope that safety and answers waited just beyond the next twist of glowing vines. Eli's outpost was little more than a seamless fusion of camouflage mesh, nanofabric walls, and clever engineering, hidden deep in the knotted roots and phosphorescent shadows of the forest. He led Lyra through a tangle of bristling ferns and past a stand of thick, sentient creepers that recoiled at her radiance. The door recognized his biometrics and hissed open, sealing them inside a world of soft, filtered light and orderly chaos. Data screens flickered, botanical samples lined every shelf, and the air was heavy with the scent of ionized metal and crushed moss. Lyra stood in the center, regal despite her injuries. The golden cascade of her hair shimmered as she turned, eyes roving over the unfamiliar tech. The wing-like energy projections at her back pulsed faintly with every breath. She didn't flinch when Eli approached with his medkit. Instead, she looked him over with a curious mix of wariness and amusement. "Sit here," Eli instructed, guiding her gently to a padded bench beside his diagnostic table. "I need to check those burns." Lyra settled, crossing her legs with fluid grace. "You have a healer's voice, Eli, but your hands tremble." Her gaze sparkled with mischief. He flushed, fumbling with the antiseptic gel. "Well, I've never treated anyone quite like you before." His tone was dry, but he was acutely aware of the heat radiating from her skin and the way her golden eyes tracked his every movement. As he unwrapped the makeshift bandages, Lyra hissed softly, but didn't shy away. The burns were severe, angry streaks marring the luminous blue of her skin, raw edges seeping faint pulses of golden light. Eli's breath caught. Up close, her energy felt almost alive, thrumming against his fingertips as he applied the gel. "You heal quickly," he observed, voice low. "Is it normal? For your kind?" Lyra's lips curved into a sly smile. "Depends what you mean by normal." She leaned in conspiratorially. "For the Skyborn, pain is a lesson. We rise above it, or we fade." He dabbed gently at her shoulder, mesmerized by the interplay of blue and gold. "Skyborn," he echoed. "That's your people?" She nodded, the movement dignified despite her exhaustion. "The ruling caste, chosen by the Veil, by the will of the world. Was to be their successor." Eli looked up, startled. "A princess?" Lyra snorted, a melodic sound. "Not princess. Heir. The rite of renewal, my test, my ascension, was meant to be completed in days. If I fail, the council will hand power to the old blood. They would keep us safe by keeping us stagnant. My people would wither. No growth. No change." Her voice trembled for the first time, a raw edge beneath her pride. He set aside the medkit, careful to meet her eyes. "You're risking everything for them." She nodded, jaw clenched. "And now, after tonight, the rite is more dangerous than ever." Eli's hand lingered at the edge of her burn scars, feeling the warmth of her golden energy. "You said someone attacked you. Deliberately." Lyra's gaze softened, a flicker of vulnerability behind the fire. "Rivals. They would rather see me dead than see our kind evolve. But you—" She paused, searching his face. "You did not have to save me. By Skyborn law, you have invoked the pact." He frowned. "The pact?" "A life saved demands trust. Honesty. You and I are bound now, Eli Warren." Her voice was hushed, almost reverent. Secrets between us are forbidden. Deception is a breach of honor. Eli's breath caught, his heart thudding in the quiet. Well, that's a lot of pressure for a first date. Lyra blinked, then laughed, a musical, silvery sound that filled the cramped shelter. Your humor is strange, human. But her golden eyes lingered on his lips, the air between them growing thick with unspoken things. He swallowed, shifting away to check her side. You're burning up. Are you sure you're all right? I've endured worse, she replied, but her tone was softer now. Your presence helps. She lifted a hand, brushing a strand of hair behind his ear. Her touch was fire and silk. Eli found himself smiling despite the danger. You don't strike me as someone who needs saving. Appearances deceive, she murmured, tracing the curve of his jaw. We are all vulnerable beneath the surface. The room seemed to shrink around them, the hum of the outpost systems fading beneath the electric tension. Eli's fingers brushed her arm, feeling the pulse of her life, the fragile trust building between them. Night settled outside, heavy and impenetrable. The swirling moons cast shifting shadows through the camo mesh, painting Lyra's golden hair with ghostly light. Eli checked his monitors obsessively, data streaming in from the sensor grid, reading patterns in the forest's subtle song. Lyra reclined across the bench, her presence both regal and dangerously inviting. She caught him glancing, a slow smile tugging at her lips. You pace like a cornered phoenix. Afraid of the dark, Eli? He grinned, feigning bravado. Just careful. I've seen what hunts out there. Her laughter was low and teasing. And what about what hunts in here? She stretched, her wing-like projections unfurling briefly, casting dancing patterns on the ceiling. He coughed, suddenly fascinated by his datapad. I'd rather face a pack of carnivorous vines than, well, never mind. Lyra's voice was gentle, coaxing. Your world must be very different, Eli Warren. Ours sings to us. If you listen, come. She patted the space beside her. Curious, he sat. She took his hand, guiding it to the wall. Close your eyes. Listen. He obeyed, feeling the subtle vibration beneath his palm, the hum of the forest, the faint, syncopated pulse of distant life. Lyra's breath was warm on his cheek. The forest changes its song before danger comes, she whispered. You can hear it. Here. She pressed his hand lower, where the vibration shifted. When predators stalk, silence falls. When the trees shudder, run. Eli opened his eyes, meeting hers. You sound like you've done this before. She shrugged, golden hair rippling. Survival is an art. You learn quickly or you do not last. He squeezed her hand, the shared silence saying more than words. Then the monitors began to flicker, casting jittery shadows across the shelter. The background hum of the forest dropped, replaced by a stillness that felt absolute. Eli tensed, eyes darting to the readouts. Something's wrong. Perimeter's losing power. Motion detectors are blind. Lyra sat up, all playfulness gone. They are coming. My rivals will not wait for dawn. Her fingers found his arm, tracing a line of heat along his skin. Her voice was urgent, intimate. We have little time, but I am glad you are here. He met her gaze, the weight of their unspoken alliance pressing close. We'll defend this place, he promised, drawing her closer. Together. Lyra's golden eyes glowed fierce and tender. Together. She echoed, her words a vow and a promise in the hush. As the darkness outside deepened and warning lights flashed, they drew strength from each other, plotting their next move and savoring the electricity between them as the world held its breath. The attack came in a rush of silvered movement and razor-thin silence. The warning lights at the perimeter flared, then died, bathing the outpost in the chill luminescence of the triple moons. Eli's heart thudded as he reached for the canister of phosphorescent dust on the shelf, glancing at Lyra. She was already in motion, golden hair streaming, energy wings unfurling in a corona of light as she retrieved her crystalline dagger. "Stay close," he whispered, barely audible above the sudden hush. "They'll come fast." Lyra nodded, jaw tight. "We face them together, Eli Warren." A shadow rippled at the edge of the shelter. Without hesitation, Eli flung the dust into the air. Pale blue motes swirling and settling on the hidden forms of their assailants. What had once blended seamlessly into the night now shone with ghostly outlines. Humanoid figures, faces half-masked, bodies warped by unnatural bulges and sinew. Lyra sprang, a streak of azure and gold. Her blade flashed, the air humming as it sliced through flesh and bone. She moved with inhuman grace, dodging claws and bio-woven weapons, countering each attack with fluid violence. Eli fired his compact flare gun, momentarily blinding the nearest figure, then ducked as a blade whistled past his cheek. "Behind you!" Lyra cried, launching herself over his head. She landed atop the attacker, her dagger driven home in a precise arc. The foe collapsed, phosphorescent dust swirling from its ruined chest. Eli's world shrank to a flurry of movement and breath. He grabbed a metal rod and swung, catching another assailant in the ribs. The creature snarled, eyes burning gold, and raked at him with talons. Lyra's energy wings swept out, slamming the enemy aside. "We're outnumbered," Eli gasped, chest heaving. "They are desperate," Lyra replied, breathing hard. She wiped her dagger clean, energy crackling along the blade's edge. "Their fear betrays them." Together, they pressed the attack. Eli triggered his last dust charge, revealing two more figures stalking through the undergrowth. Lyra darted ahead, her every movement a study in lethal beauty. The crystalline dagger sang, and the attackers fell, one after another, their twisted forms writhing in the moonlight. At last, the clearing fell silent, broken only by the hiss of Eli's breath and the low hum of Lyra's wings. She stood over the fallen, chest rising and falling, blood spattering her luminous skin. Eli knelt beside one body, frowning as he peered closer. The assailant's features were wrong, skin mottled, eyes too large, limbs jointed at unnatural angles. "Lyra, look at this." Eli's voice shook. "They're altered. Genetically. Someone's been experimenting with your people." Lyra staggered, pressing a hand to her side where blood welled from a fresh wound. She dropped beside him, eyes wide with shock and horror. "They've twisted the bloodlines," she whispered. "This is forbidden. Madness." Eli examined the body, tracing the seams of subdermal implants and the telltale signs of rapid gene splicing. "Whoever did this didn't care about safety. They're using your own as weapons." Lyra's breath caught. "It's worse than I feared. If they can corrupt the right, nothing is sacred." He helped her to her feet, guiding her gently back into the shelter. "We need to patch you up," he said, grabbing the medkit. "Sit, please." She obeyed, her bravado crumbling at the edges. As Eli cleaned the gash on her side, his hands steady despite his racing heart, she watched him with a mix of gratitude and anguish. "They will not stop," she said softly. "My rivals will keep sending broken souls until I fall." Eli wrapped her wound, fingers lingering on her fever-warm skin. "We'll find a way. There has to be a way to end this cycle." She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. "I am meant to renew my people, to guide them forward. But if the bloodlines are unraveling, maybe there's nothing left to save." He cupped her cheek, brushing a smear of gold from her jaw. "Don't say that. You're different, Lyra. You're stable. You heal. You adapt. Maybe that's what they fear." Her golden eyes shimmered, uncertainty flickering within. I was always told I was chosen, unique, but I never understood why. Let's find out, Eli said, voice resolute. He reached for his scanner, sweeping it over her injury, then over a sample of blood from one of the fallen attackers. The data streamed in, lines of code and genetic maps overlaying the air. Lyra watched, breathless, as the comparison unfolded. Eli frowned, then widened his eyes. Lyra, look at this. Your genome is different. There's a pattern, something intentional. Your ancestors encoded a kind of stability gene, a safeguard. You're immune to the unraveling that's destroying the others. Her lips parted in wonder. You mean, I was made for this? He nodded. Not just to lead, but to restore. The rite of renewal isn't a test of strength. It's a test of survival. For your entire species. If you succeed, you'll save them all. Lyra trembled, overwhelmed by the magnitude. All my life I thought I was just lucky, or cursed. But this was their plan? Eli pulled up ancient genetic records, piecing together the threads. It's all here. Generations ago, your people saw the bloodlines would fail. They created you. Someone who could withstand the genetic decay. Someone who could bring renewal. And he stopped, realization dawning. My arrival wasn't an accident either. There's a marker in your DNA, a beacon, encoded to call for help. Lyra stared at him, the pieces sliding into place. We were meant to meet. He nodded, awe and affection mingling. You called, and I answered. All those dreams, the pull to this world, it was fate written in code. The revelation stole their breath. Lyra's wounds for a moment seemed to fade as she gazed at Eli, her eyes shining with hope and longing. I have never trusted so deeply, she murmured. Not even with my own kind. Eli's hand slid to her neck, thumb brushing the pulse of golden energy there. You're not alone, Lyra. Not anymore. She leaned in, her lips trembling with need and certainty. Their mouths met, softly at first, then with a hunger born of shared destiny. The kiss deepened, slow and urgent, her fingers threading into his hair as he drew her closer. The glow of the outpost's lights bathed them in gentle warmth, mingling blue and gold in a dance of light. They pulled apart, foreheads pressed together, breaths mingling. Lyra's hand found his, squeezing tight. Whatever comes, we face it together, she whispered. Eli smiled, eyes shining. Together, he promised. They held each other in the luminous quiet, the bond between them more than love, an alliance, a promise, and the hope of a future neither could have imagined. In the shelter's gentle light, their connection deepened with every touch. As outside, the world braced for the storm yet to come. As the rite drew near, the outpost became a crucible of sweat and laughter, of strategy and desire. Eli and Lyra trained beneath the glow of triple moons, their bodies moving through the silver-lit clearing as if the world itself watched with bated breath. They began each session with structure, Eli teaching the fluidity of human hand-to-hand combat, Lyra countering with the unpredictable grace of skyborne agility. But the formality never lasted. Every parry, every lock, became a dance, their movements tightening, breath mixing, the rhythm faltering as the boundary between sparring and intimacy blurred. Your guard's open, Eli teased, twisting beneath her arm and sweeping her legs. Lyra rolled with the motion, landing atop him, her energy wings unfurling in a flare of gold. Your footwork is predictable, human. Again. He grinned up at her, winded but exhilarated. You sure you're not just showing off for me? She leaned down, lips inches from his, golden hair brushing his cheek. Perhaps. Then she let him go, springing up with a laugh that rippled through the clearing. The sessions were relentless, driven by the urgency of the rite and the ticking clock of looming conflict, yet laced with a joy that made even exhaustion sweet. Lyra absorbed every lesson, adapting human feints and leverage to her inhuman speed. Eli learned to anticipate the shimmer of her energy wings, to read the intent in the flicker of her golden eyes. Their bodies grew attuned to each other, every touch a silent promise, every fall an excuse for contact that lingered just a second too long. One evening, after a particularly intense round that ended with Eli pinned and both of them laughing, she pressed her forehead to his, breathless. "When the rite is over, will you stay?" she asked, the vulnerability in her voice matching the fire in her gaze. He brushed his thumb along her jaw, savoring the heat beneath her skin. "Try and make me leave," he whispered. As dusk painted the world in velvet blue, they set out for the skyborn citadel. Lyra wore the armor of her lineage, streamlined and iridescent, while Eli carried a satchel of gadgets and a heart pounding with anticipation. They moved as one through the tangled undercity, navigating shadow and silence. Using codes Lyra had stolen from her rivals, they bypassed the sentry nodes, Eli disabling sensors with a pulse of his custom jammer. "Left," Lyra murmured, pressing close as a guardian patrol passed. The heat of her body, the brush of her wing, sent a shiver through him. He nodded, lips barely moving. "Keep moving, we're almost there." They reached the heart of the citadel, a spiraling archive wrapped in living crystal. Moonlight filtered down through the glassy canopy, refracting into shifting patterns of blue and gold. Lyra keyed in the final override, the doors whispering open. For a moment they paused in the shadows, tension crackling between them. Eli caught her hand, pulling her into a brief, hungry kiss, a spark shared in the hush before the storm. "Promise me," she whispered against his lips, "when this is done." "Everything," he vowed. "Whatever you want. Just come back to me." Inside they moved with purpose, skirting the luminous stacks. Eli scanned the ancient records, breath-catching as the data unfolded. "Lyra, look at this. Your ancestors. They engineered adaptability. They planned for unions with outsiders, humans, maybe even others. You're not just allowed to change. You were meant to." She stared at the glowing records, awe and hope warring in her expression. "My whole life, I was told to fear change, but it's our salvation." Their triumph lasted only a heartbeat. Heavy footsteps echoed through the chamber. Kale emerged from the shadows, clad in obsidian armor, flanked by half a dozen guards. His eyes burned with fury, the jagged lines of gene tampering visible beneath his skin. "Traitors!" Kale spat. "You would corrupt us with filth from beyond the veil." Lyra stepped forward, blade gleaming in her hand. "It's you who betrayed the Skyborn, Kale. You and your monstrous experiments." He sneered, signaling his guards. "You're weak, Lyra. You'd rather see us diluted than strong." Eli slipped behind a console, palms sweating as he readied his tools. "We need the evidence," he hissed to Lyra. She nodded, circling Kale. "Then come, champion, prove your strength." The battle erupted in a clash of light and steel. Lyra met Kale blow for blow, her crystalline dagger flashing in counterpoint to his brutal swings. Their duel was a ballet, her new skills weaving Eli's lessons with her own unearthly power. Kale drove her back, but she twisted beneath his guard, wings flickering, each strike testing the limits of her newfound adaptability. Meanwhile, Eli ducked the guard's charge, deploying a cloud of phosphorescent dust that left them blinking and blinded. He darted from terminal to terminal, fingers flying over alien glyphs. Almost there. Just a few more seconds. Kale, sensing defeat, snarled and slammed his fist into the floor. The chamber shuddered, an alarm keening. Failsafe triggered, a cold voice intoned. Data purge initiated. Eli, Lyra called, desperation in her voice as she parried another strike. I see it, Eli shouted, jamming his makeshift data spike into the archive. Hold them off! Lyra redoubled her efforts, sweat and blood mingling on her brow. Kale lunged, driving her back against the crystalline wall. You'll never save them, he hissed, spittle flying. You're too late. She met his gaze, defiant. I am the right, Kale. I am the future you fear. With a sudden feint, she disarmed him, her dagger pressed to his throat. For an instant, time hung suspended. Eli, heart-pounding, shouted, Got it! I've secured the records! Kale roared, lashing out, but Lyra swept his legs and sent him crashing to the floor. The guards hesitated, leaderless, and Eli used a flash pellet to drive them back. He sprinted to Lyra's side, data spike clutched tight, adrenaline humming in his veins. They pressed together behind a fractured archive, their breaths ragged. Every look, every touch, burned with the urgency of near disaster. Lyra cupped Eli's face, her golden eyes fierce and tender all at once. You did it. He pressed his forehead to hers, thumb tracing the edge of her jaw. We did it. Together. For a moment the world shrank to the press of her lips, the heat of her hand on his chest. Danger and longing coiled between them, every second charged with promise. Their victory was fragile, but the hope in Lyra's eyes was real, a future earned in sweat, blood, and the merging of two worlds. The chamber flickered with the last light of the archives. Outside, alarms echoed and shadows converged, but in that suspended instant, Eli and Lyra drew strength from each other, ready to face whatever the right, and fate, would demand next. At dawn, Eli and Lyra stood side by side beneath the vault of the skyborne amphitheater, their figures bathed in the shifting gold of a new morning. The amphitheater itself seemed carved from living crystal, tiered seats stretching up into the mist as hundreds of skyborne faces watched in silence. The council, 9 elders draped in veils of blue and silver, waited at the heart of the arena, their expressions unreadable, their gaze weighing worlds. Eli's pulse hammered as he looked out at the gathered skyborne, the truth they carried pressing between his shoulder blades like a brand. Lyra, radiant in ceremonial armor, squeezed his hand. Her golden eyes, usually fierce, were luminous with emotion. A voice rang out, amplified by ancient technology. Present your case. Eli stepped forward, thumb brushing the data spike at his belt. We bring proof, he said, voice clear but trembling at the edges, that the right of renewal is not only a test of worth, but a fulfillment of your ancestors' vision. Your bloodlines were engineered for adaptability, for unity with outsiders, to avoid stagnation and destruction. He raised the data spike, projecting shimmering glyphs and genetic diagrams into the air. Images of ancient skyborne, their DNA helixes entwined with unfamiliar code, spiraled overhead. Forced manipulation is destroying your people. The only path forward is what your ancestors intended. Evolution through trust and union, not fear and control. A murmur rippled through the amphitheater. One counselor, her eyes like pale sapphires, narrowed her gaze. How do we know this is not more outsider corruption? Lyra's voice rang with conviction as she stepped beside Eli. Because I am the proof. I survived where others could not. My stability is not an accident. It is the gift encoded by those who came before. If you continue to force the right, the skyborne will perish. Another elder, robed in midnight blue, leaned forward. And you, outsider? What is your role in this? Eli met the elder's gaze, nerves raw but unflinching. I came here to study, but I stayed to help. Lyra called to me. Her DNA contains a beacon, a call for aid written generations ago. We were meant to find each other. A heavy silence fell. Then, from the back of the dais, an elder historian stepped forward, her hair silver as the moon's. "This is not the first time an outsider has shaped our fate," she said softly. "Long ago, during the first unraveling, a human brought knowledge and compassion. His union with a skyborn gave rise to a new age, an age that made this right possible. It is written in the hidden texts." Gasps swept the crowd. Eli saw Lyra's eyes widen in wonder. The head counselor rose, the weight of history settling on his shoulders. "You have shown us proof, and reminded us of our forgotten debts. The right of renewal must be faced by both of you, as one. Let the bond that saved our people once before be tested again." Shock rippled through the amphitheater. Some hissed in protest, others pressed hands to hearts in awe. Lyra reached for Eli's hand, their fingers threading together as the decree echoed over the crystal tiers. "Together," she whispered, voice trembling with hope and fear. "Eli, do you accept?" He squeezed her hand, holding her gaze as the world watched. "With everything I am, we do this together." The council pronounced their bond in the language of the veil, ancient and resonant. "May unity guide you. May love and courage forge the path." As the amphitheater emptied, Lyra and Eli lingered in the fading light, the enormity of their task sinking in. Guards and acolytes whispered behind veiled hands, some with envy, some with hope. Their union, public now, irreversible, would alter both their destinies. Later, as dusk gathered and the world quieted, they retreated to a secluded alcove within the citadel, away from prying eyes. The crystalline walls caught the dying sunlight, throwing fractured patterns across Lyra's face. She traced Eli's jaw with trembling fingers, her touch feather light but deliberate. "Did you ever imagine your fate would be bound to mine?" she whispered, her voice a blend of wonder and gratitude. Eli shook his head, drawing her closer. "Never. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'd choose you every time." She smiled, a soft, vulnerable curve that made his heart ache. "I was raised to believe I had to carry everything alone. Now, I can't imagine facing the right without you." He cupped her cheek, brushing his thumb over her golden skin. "You don't have to. I'm here. Whatever comes, we face it as one." Lyra leaned in, her lips brushing his in a kiss that was gentle at first, then deepened by urgency and love. The world outside faded, leaving only the warmth of their embrace and the mingling of breath and heartbeat. Her hands tangled in his hair, his arms wrapped tight around her waist, grounding them in the moment before the storm. As the night deepened, they curled together on a bed of woven crystal fibers, the air thick with whispered promises. Lyra traced the lines of Eli's face, memorizing every curve, every scar. "Thank you," she murmured, voice raw. "For seeing me, for staying." He pressed his forehead to hers, voice husky. "Thank you for letting me in." They spoke of hope and fear, of dreams and burdens, of the world that might be born from their union. Wrapped in each other's arms, they found a fragile peace, a sanctuary amid uncertainty. When sleep finally claimed them, it was with hearts entwined, ready for whatever the right might demand. In the hush before dawn, their whispered vows lingered, a promise echoing between two worlds. At sunrise, Eli and Lyra crossed the threshold of the ancient arena, their footsteps echoing over the polished crystal floor. The amphitheater, older than any living skyborn, rose around them in a sweeping spiral, seats crowded with citizens cloaked in blue and gold. Above, the triple moons hung low, pouring their light over the assembled thousands. On the dais, the council waited in ceremonial silence, flanked by sentinels in iridescent armor. The air was charged, every eye fixed on the pair who stood at the fulcrum of fate. Lyra's hand trembled in Eli's, but her voice was steady as the council beckoned them forward. She stepped into the light, standing tall before her people. Her golden hair gleamed, energy wings flickering in time with her heartbeat. "I come before you," she called, voice ringing through the dawn-lit arena, not as a relic of our past, but as a promise for our future. The right of truth is not about purity or fear. It is about survival, about unity. A low murmur rolled through the crowd, suspicion and hope vying in every face. Lyra pressed on, her words gaining strength. For generations we have closed ourselves to the stars, clinging to the illusion that safety lies in isolation. But that path leads only to decay. My own existence is proof. My blood carries the strength of skyborn and human alike. It is fusion, not separation, that offers us hope. Kale's voice broke the spell, sharp as shattered glass. He strode into the circle, silver armor gleaming, eyes blazing with anger. You would undo everything our ancestors fought to protect. You would dilute us until nothing remains but weakness. Lyra met his gaze, unflinching. You call it weakness, Kale, but I call it evolution. Look at what your path has wrought. Pain, division, genetic ruin. It is time we honor what truly matters: survival, growth, and love. Kale's fists clenched. Words. Nothing but words. What proof do you have that this outsider is not our undoing? Eli stepped forward, the morning light catching the data spike in his hand. I have proof, he said, projecting luminous genetic records above the arena. The air shimmered with helixes and ancestral lines, each one marked by the subtle glow of human and skyborn traits intertwined. Every union between human and skyborn, Eli explained, has brought new resilience, new possibility. Lyra is the culmination. Her genome is perfectly adapted, stable where yours are unraveling. The data is clear. Our union is not the end of your people, but their salvation. The council exchanged glances, the weight of the evidence settling on their shoulders. The eldest historian, her voice trembling with memory and hope, stepped into the light. Our oldest law, she intoned, is not one of exclusion, but of gratitude. In times of great peril, the outsider who saves us may become one of us. Today, the right of truth will be fulfilled by both the chosen and the savior. A reverent hush fell as acolytes brought forth the radiant crystal, its heart pulsing with ancient power. The council beckoned Eli and Lyra to kneel at the altar. Lyra caught Eli's eye, her expression a mingling of fear and awe. "Are you ready?" she whispered, fingers threading through his. Eli smiled, heart pounding. "With you, always." The historian began the ritual, chanting in the tongue of the veil. The crystal flared, its light enveloping Eli and Lyra in a cocoon of blue and gold. Lyra's energy wings arched protectively around them as the crystal's glow intensified, threads of light weaving through Eli's skin, deeper than bone, rewriting him at the most fundamental level. He gasped as his senses exploded with color and sound. A sudden, profound awareness of Lyra beside him, her heartbeat echoing in his chest, her thoughts brushing his own. The pain was brief, replaced by a surge of warmth, a sensation of belonging that transcended flesh. The council's voice thundered, "Let the right be witnessed. Let Skyborn and outsider become one." As the ritual ended, Eli opened his eyes, the world subtly different, brighter, sharper, more alive. He glanced at his hands. A faint blue shimmer traced his veins, the mark of the Skyborn. Lyra gazed at him, awe and joy shimmering in her golden eyes. The crowd rose in waves of sound, some shocked, some jubilant, many in tears. The ancient amphitheater vibrated with hope for the first time in generations. Hours later, in the quiet sanctuary of their quarters, Lyra stood before Eli in the soft afterglow of transformation. She reached for him, her fingers trembling as they traced the iridescent blue on his skin. "It's beautiful," she whispered, wonder and gratitude tangled in every word. You're part of me now." Eli caught her hand, turning it over to press a kiss to her palm. "I feel you, Lyra. Every heartbeat, every spark." She leaned in, her golden hair a curtain around their faces. Her lips met his in a kiss that was both discovery and homecoming, slow, deep, unhurried. As their bodies pressed together, golden sparks danced along their joined skin, illuminating the new patterns that shimmered where blue met gold. Their connection, physical, mental, spiritual, was seamless. Eli felt Lyra's joy, her relief, her aching hope. Lyra tasted his devotion, his awe, his unspoken promises. She smiled against his lips, pulling him closer, her voice a breathless murmur. "We're truly together now. Nothing will ever separate us." He kissed her again, fiercely, as if to imprint the moment into their shared DNA. The world outside faded to a distant hum, replaced by the pulse of their bond, a love that transcended worlds and rewrote destinies. Beyond their windows, the forest shimmered with new life, the bioluminescent trees rising brighter than ever, as if the planet itself breathed easier. The triple moons dipped toward the horizon, heralding a dawn unlike any before. Whispers of renewal spread through the skyborne, hope unfurling like wings at sunrise. Eli and Lyra lay entwined, golden and blue, their bodies and souls forever merged. Together, they had saved her people, transformed his fate, and discovered a love written into every cell, a love that glowed with the promise of endless adventures yet to come. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.